So let's discuss this foot a little bit.
Sure.
So,
it's a really big foot.
yeah.
A lot of growth on the wall. He's pretty much completely suspended on this wall. Frog's not in the worst shape we've seen. Okay, bulbs. He should have more than that for his size,
but definitely a whole heck of a lot of wall.
Yeah.
To the point where it's trying to split out and self-trim, and obviously didn't have the chance to do that. So we had some questions on the forum about trimming bars and stuff. Well, these bars are independent of the sole, so they're very easy to trim just by putting your nippers underneath. And just closing them. With any foot like that is really overgrown, we don't need to go in and hone out that detail. Now we go to the next most obvious thing, which is, the big lip of wall all over.
Yeah.
So something for anyone watching when you're using the nippers, it's quite a lot of wall here, and you can't really do a lot of damage because you can't take too big of a bite. Your nipper won't allow it. But make sure when you do use your nipper, you completely close it before you do the bend. Make sure you hear that click and then do the bend so you can see your nipper line. In through here is our sole line, so we're just going to go to halfway. So this is good, and then here we start to see the gape. So we're going to come closer here and go right to our center. Be right back. Well, the next most obvious thing is this raised white line. So we're just going to take the nippers and click that off. Should feel a little rubbery. Basically, that was the horse trying to make his own band-aid and close up that white line with all this excess growth. So we can certainly see the split. Sometimes if you have a lot of frog, you can use your nippers. We're just trying to trim half of this at the moment. If you have a really sharp knife, it takes the frog very nice too. If you have a bunch of excess, use your nippers. Always thinking of preserving the frog and taking away just what needs to go and allowing more growth to come in. Now with our knives, we shall check whatever's easily chalking off, especially in the free the frog zone. It's important to think you're not really cutting here. You're using your knife in your hands. As you can see, your fingers are opening and closing and sort of milking that blade, just scraping it across the sole. So it's like using a really sharp hoof pick and taking what wishes to come very easily versus cutting into it. So rasping. A little bit at the back so you can visually see the widest part. It's not really doing anything other than giving you a visual so that you know where the heel base should be from that point forward. 99% of the time those heel buttresses are too far forward. They just migrate forward as the foot grows forward. So just to give us an idea of where the heel base is, and then move forward onto the rest of the foot into the quarters. Now we have a better idea of where the quarters are. Once you have an idea of where your heel base should be. Angle of your rasp is important. Pulling up simulates what you would be trimming if the foot was on the hoof stand. Only you can see all the way around the white line here. The angle of your rasp is more perpendicular. Especially if you have a flat foot, you got to be really careful to go perpendicular. If you have a little bit of a big foot like this with some concavity, your rasp can angle a little different, so you can do two things at once. Like if you're angling it, yeah, that way, it simulates a 45.
So I can see that the white line is being stretched from about here's the front of the foot where I'd like it to be. But we have to remember this is quite a big horse, judging by the size of his foot, and seeing how thick the wall is back here. I don't want to take too much more.
And because this is really separated, this wall isn't doing its job anyway. And so you just want to relieve the edges and possibly
take
that down a bit and investigate what the condition of the white line is past that split. So a rubbery texture. So now we're into the bar, and we want to get our knife under the bar and pull it sort of back and up towards the frog versus pulling it to the side and just getting the side of the bar. A lot of people go in there and get that, and they get that side of the bar. You want to keep it that you're under the top of the bar and pulling back so you maintain the integrity of the bar and not thin it. Basically just pulling that bar off the sole. Yeah. So it's starting to look better, more of a beautiful shape versus all out of whack. More rasping. Just trying to get the heel back to the furthest most point, the widest point of the frog, as much as you can on a first trim.
Separation is so good.
So intense.
Yeah.
checking the level of the frog. The frog shouldn't be the first thing that you cut. Should be the last thing. So checking the level of the frog, if you come forward, we've got a teeter-totter there. And even if we used all our might to press down, it still is a teeter-totter. So that means we have to take a little sliver of the frog, which is not uncommon on a big long foot that has this frog trying to reach for the ground. Measure twice, cut once. So if this was a live horse, he'd be well off with the trim like this, and we would want to come back in about 10 days to 3 weeks maximum after we turn him out, and he can walk and use and adjust this foot. We can still see that the toe is still forward from where it should be. Right on. Okay, so now we're going to go beyond the trim and start to find out where is that bone. So it just took off a big chunk, and all we're in is wall and white line. Be right back. So still going back flat at the toe, trying to find that bone, and still nowhere near it. Well, we're near it, but there's no visual from the outside that we're close. Took another load, and now we're into the corium of the coffin bone. But look how close that is to the apex. So don't be afraid of taking the toe back.